The Ridovka team is in Malaya Loknia together with fighters from the Irish Strike Unit. We have come to this particular settlement to show you exactly what is truly left of it.
The Holy Gospel, the New Testament, these books are with us on every combat mission. We found the New Testament in a burned out village. The enemy leveled it. We got into a tight spot there. In the basement that saved us had this book and an icon. And here is the Holy Gospel. This is from Kursk. When the Metropolitan blessed us, he gave us the Gospel. He blessed us for feats of arms. So now it is always directly with us on every combat mission, together with our equipment. And the icon of the Mother of God helps us strike the enemy. My mother gave me this icon and blessed me before I left for the war, so it is always with me. This is the pilot's workstation, and this is the spotter, observer's workstation. The equipment is being prepared right now. Deployment generally takes from 1.5 hours to 2 hours. No, not directly under fire, but we have had to deploy close to the line of contact, even in such conditions. But at the same time, in our work, the most important rule is that the devil is in the details and the little things. That's why any overlooked detail can cost you your life. Preliminary preparation, constant training, and strict adherence to instructions. But sometimes you have to deviate from the standard procedures again. Another important factor is the determination, spirit, and courage of each member of the crew. Unfortunately, yes. That is, we can't reach every area directly by vehicle. We have to unload several kilometers away from the working position. And so, in a shuttle step, shuttle run, wearing body armor and full gear, under the constant threat of enemy drones and artillery, we move to our positions and deploy. All of this accordingly takes a very long time and requires enormous effort. And it demands total dedication from every member of the crew. That's why the guys are all heroes, guys with such dedication to their work and their profession. Honestly, in all my years of service in the armed forces, I have never seen anything like it. Motivation, people understand that, especially here on Kursk soil, it played a certain new shades. You could say this is our land, our motherland. You could say we're already Kursk natives. And so each member of our crew thinks this way. It gives us strength, lifts our spirits, adds willpower, and gives us courage. Despite the fact that the guys have been carrying out their tasks for quite a long time, the Battle of Kursk has become something sacred for use, a matter of principle, a cause for our generation.
I joined the Grom Cascade Brigade as a Super Kama technician operator, but in fact the work became maybe uninteresting, boring. It was all the same direction. And it was decided at that time a new direction was being formed in the brigade, which was FPV. I volunteered to go to learn, to try it out, to see how it all works. There the work is more dynamic anyway. I was also an antenna operator, a loader, a classic drone operator, Mavics. Then I became an FPV operator, and eventually I worked my way up to crew commander. The first tank in the Belgorod direction that was hit happened during the offensive, when in March there was a breakthrough by the enemy in the Belgorod region. In fact, the very first tank that burned there, it was a tank I hit. In general, I'm a rather unemotional person by nature. That actually helped me at work to keep control, because when you're flying toward a target, especially a big one like a tank, you need that. Or something like that, some kind of armor, there's always a certain amount of nerves, because you start worrying whether you'll hit or miss. Sometimes there are duds, misfires, especially when it comes to optics and so on. So that's why I tried, on the contrary, to suppress my emotions. But in any case, when the drone hits the target, makes contact, and something starts burning, of course it's satisfying, it's a result, and the whole crew understands that it wasn't for nothing. Today we went out, moved in. Again, there's risk. The main risk is during entry and exit, so it's clear that at this point the risk is justified.
The battles for Mala Loknia and for the surrounding villages were fought over for a long 4 to 5 months. This was for liberation. There was also the heroic defense of Mala Loknia, the heroic defense of the prison, when our assault troops entered the settlement, took control of the detention center, and drove out the enemy. The enemy fled from here in haste, abandoning everything. Because the supply routes were cut off, and in order not to end up surrounded, they fled. But they left behind, abandoned their own soldiers for so-called holding positions while their main forces withdrew. Mercenaries, all sorts of media personalities, ordinary young guys, their mobilized troops, what we call bussified, were defending the village. They fought well, of course, but our assault troops, again, with our support, with the support of artillery and tanks, accomplished the feat. In addition to NATO equipment, there was also old Soviet harbor, which was in service with the Ukrainian armed forces at the start of the battle. In fact, the enemy's operational headquarters was here. That is, from here, they managed all the logistics for the northern direction, the front of our Kursk salient. So, accordingly, this settlement had very important strategic significance for the enemy. The airstrip, FPV, takeoff, bricks. They took off from here, but not ours. These were the enemy's. Well, here's the prison. I just imagine the scale of the heroic defense of this prison, because the guys held off the enemy's advance for several weeks after the village was occupied. Right there, with mortars, they pounded the administrative building, went in. Well, that's a German IFV. So the guys heroically defended the prison there. So in reality, it's even incredibly hard to truly imagine what the brave guys had to profoundly go through and what an astonishing feat they ultimately accomplished. Because they didn't just steadfastly stand their ground to the bitter death, they stood absolutely unbreakably with unwavering resolve. There's that very tank destroyed January, early February of 25. That tank was a real problem for our infantry. It would come out and repel our assaults directly. We tracked it for a long time, kept an eye on it, searched for it using surveillance equipment, and as you can see, we found it. When the enemy parked it early in the morning and hit it, we struck with the very first rays of the sun, and the tank was destroyed. So what's it like to sit on your trophy while it's still intact? Well, honestly, it's, how to say, quite an interesting feeling. That's it. It's unusual and ambiguous because, after all, through the scopes you can't really see. You don't truly see the immense scale. You don't really perceive, well, the sheer volume, so to speak, of this colossal monster. But at the very same time, you must understand the profound kind of significant harm and extensive damage it could potentially inflict upon our brave infantry brothers, our dedicated assault troops. That is precisely why our crucial task was to completely destroy it. And we successfully accomplished this vital mission. The infantry moved forward, and the infantry performed the heroic...
This is the building of the former home for the disabled in Malaya Loknia. And after the area was occupied, naturally there were no more disabled people left here, and the building was used as a point for the UAV operator to work from. Even now, we can see there are still wheelchairs here. From one of the rooms, the AFU made a sort of mountain sphere. Naturally, everything was destroyed. Everything was looted, smashed, and broken. What do you have in your hands?
This particular case originates from a grenade that was manufactured by NATO forces. However, it is important to note that these are distinctly different types of grenades.
But they're also foreign-made.
Do you come across a lot of these?
Yes, here, when we were leaving, there were a lot. There are mines everywhere, grenades, cartridges, ammunition.
completely. So the attack on the Kursk region was financed.
Sponsored by the West? Yes, there was a lot of Western weaponry, Western equipment. The fighters in the armed forces of Ukraine are well supplied in that regard. Peaceful life is slowly returning to these parts. People are coming back home. Fortunately, the strength of Russian arms and the will and spirit of the Russian soldier are making this possible. And it so happened that my grandfather burned German tanks near Kursk in 1943. And now it turns out in 2025, I burned German tanks near Kursk. God willing, this war will end and we will definitely win. And just like that, already with gray at my temples, we'll walk through these places, gather together with our close-knit military team. And that spirit of nostalgia, the spirit of military brotherhood and camaraderie, it will flare up again, so to speak, when we return to these places, to this land.